On to our next speaker. Now more than ever before, being financially independent and secure is essential, but it's also bloody hard. We're all accomplished, successful, smart women, but sometimes we put ourselves and our wealth last. Nicole Pedersen-McKinnon is on a mission to change that. She's a money expert. She was the former editor, then editor-at-large of the Fin Review's Smart Investor magazine. She commentates on morning TV, writes for the SMH, Sun Herald and Sunday Age, and since COVID, when we all learnt how to use Zoom and film on our iPhones, she's shared invaluable advice on her social media. And she's an expert who has lived it. At the end of 2020, we all thought we were saying goodbye to one of the shittest years on record. Surely 2021 couldn't be worse. For Nicole, it got a hell of a lot worse. She found a lump and was diagnosed with breast cancer. Then her marriage ended. For so many, it would be panic. How could you possibly get back on your feet? Where do you even start? Well, from the woman who's experienced it all firsthand, she's about to share some incredibly valuable advice. Simple and easy to understand. Nicole's 5 steps to put yourself first.
Thank you so much, Kate. Okay, we'll see if we can make this work. Well, that's pretty miserable, wasn't it? Cracking start to a speech. There's one thing you need to know about me up front, and that's that I'm a relentlessly, annoyingly positive person. The other thing you need to know is that I'm not going to talk to you from behind a lectern that's way too tall for me anyway, let's face it, because we're going deep, and this is going to get intimate. This is how I felt about 2020, and I know I'm not alone. So this is with thanks to F.I.R.S.T, and if you don't follow her, then do yourself a favour and get some light relief and do it. 2020 was full on. So one particular post that I did on social media, when the world was falling off an economic cliff, the pandemic panic had just broken, everything had been shut down, everyone's incomes had been shut down, JobKeeper had just been announced, and everyone was going, what the hell? What is going on? What does this mean? Do I qualify for this? There was really no information out there that was sort of fast, easy, understandable. So I jumped on my social media and put it all, just stream of consciousness. Here's the deal. Here's how you get it. Here's how you don't get it. Here's how you qualify, etc. And that one post had 750,000 views in. It was really spooky, actually, because I watched that post go viral like the virus was supposed to go. So every time I looked, it was 10,000 more and 50,000 more and 100,000 more. And it was really quite terrifying to see that play out in another way. And I swear to God, it felt like half of those people then messaged me directly for help. No pressure or anything, right? Meanwhile, my own business, my own freelance income was teetering. You know, I was getting calls from all sorts of outlets you wouldn't even consider going, can you write for free? I'm like, whoa, I just can't feed my children with free, that's the thing. So, you know, all that was going to pot as well. This is the first time I've addressed a live audience in 2.5 years because these things haven't happened. It all got shut down. A lot of my income was in jeopardy as well. So yeah, 2020 felt like this for me. There was a lot of pressure. And remember that sense when it was midnight and it was ticking over. It was that kind of desperate hope, but also paranoid fear that we wouldn't get a sitcom-style reset and everything wouldn't go back to normal at the end of the half hour. But, you know, we kind of hoped. So I stayed up, I watched, and it was going pretty well. It was going pretty well at the beginning, right? So we're going to see if I can actually work this clicker. That's the big one. I was approaching the year like this. I really, you know, I have enthusiasm. I was pulling myself up by the bootstraps and I was going, yep, it's going to be better. We're going to nail it this year. 2021 is going to be super good. Started the year like I always do, which is by doing the early morning sunrise cross for people to sort their financial shit out, basically, right? To get their act together, that financial New Year's resolution. And I had a new book out. Now, importantly, that book is called How to Get Mortgage Free Like Me. File that away for later. So I told people how to, you know, ditch 10 years of their debt. Happy days, flying start. Did some interviews, became the poster child for mortgage freedom. Tops, really tops. The Daily Mail picked it up. You know you've made it when the Daily Mail is paying attention to what you do, right? 7 years, amazing, absolutely amazing. signed some books, it's all going swimmingly. This was maybe January 6th. 6 days, ladies, 6 days. Found some time to do what I love in the place I love to do it, though, which is run. That's my therapy. Now, in that very cleansing photo right there is a tumour. So right under my right arm, just about there was a tumour that when I laid down couldn't be felt, when I stood up could actually be seen. So I'm kind of almost surprised that you can't see it in that photo. I feel like I can talk with detachment about it, about my boobs, because I don't have them anymore. So, I found that lump. You say lump in boob, they say jump the queue. So within an hour, I was in the GP and in this amazing health system that we've got in this whirlwind of tests. 2 weeks of tests later, I'm doing this. I know I have cancer by this point. I found out 7 days later, but I don't know how bad it is. So there's another 7 days, and anyone who's been through it, and I know there's a few people in this room, you know, personally I already know that. The waiting is the worst bit, just not knowing. Once you know the plan of attack, then you can deal, you know? And after it's happened, then you just heal. But when you wait, it's horrible. So I didn't want, you know, my life can be shiny. It wasn't a shiny moment. I wanted to remember it and, you know, no one but the people I love have ever seen that photo. This is a shiny moment, and look how big I am. So that set in motion a craziness that began on January 7, and I feel very blessed to say that I was able to financially cope with because I walk the talk of what I do, which is teaching people to have their financial act together, okay? So I'm going to tell you how I did that, how I made it, how I had it all set up just by the nature of who I am for things to go wrong, and they actually went really seriously wrong for me. So I was trying to come up with an acronym for how to make this as simple as possible and lay this out, and most importantly, as memorable as possible for you. I said to my children's wonderful dad, who has been my best friend and more since I was 19 years old, I said, you know, what's an acronym I can use that will just kind of help people understand, help people deal with what we've been through, and also encapsulate, you know, the whole kind of year and a half, 2 years. He goes, easy. Super health insurance tax. He has a wicked sense of dark humour. Super health insurance tax. I'm like, haha, yeah, funny. But you know what? That really leads into the first one, which is F for fund. Shit happens to good people, and you cannot control that. As the saying goes, all you can control is how you react to it, all right? And whether you're prepared for it. My last nearly 2 years could have been so much more traumatic if I had financial stress piled on top of the emotional and health issues, like the emotional stress and the health issues. You need a holy shit fund for when things go wrong. Well, forget about a blah emergency fund, rainy day money, whatever. It's a holy shit fund for when it's literally that moment where you need it because it's make or break for your life. Now, that fund should preferably be 6 months of your salary, which is a lot, I know. And right now, that's a big ask because we're all facing cost pressures everywhere. But start to build that slowly and surely, just regular savings whenever you possibly can. If you have a mortgage, that should probably be housed in an offset account alongside your mortgage, okay? Top tidbit, and you're going to get a lot of tidbits, literally tidbits in this session today. So a holy shit fund is where you start for when shit happens, because it might, you never know. Now, the second thing you need is insurance. There's 3 types you must look at and must double check whether you've got enough. Now, health insurance saved my life. It really did. So I had a nipple-sparing double mastectomy, bilateral nipple-sparing double mastectomy on March 2, so about 7 weeks after I got diagnosed. They would have given me a lumpectomy in the public system, which would have been fine for then. You know, it probably would have been fine for then. My risk of recurrence would have been there. It would have been every single year. With that treatment, you have to have a lumpectomy as well to make sure it hadn't spread to lymph nodes, which it hadn't, mercifully. I would have had to have radiation, which I was lucky enough to have the counsel of a couple of very dear friends who were even younger than me who had gone through it. Radiation, especially on women who are very slight, can actually have all sorts of long-term effects that are even worse than chemo. I didn't need chemo because my cancer was hormone positive, so it would not have responded to chemo. So radiation was what I would have to have then, and then I would have to have had 10 years of hormone blockers, which would have put me into early menopause, very likely. All that's just great options, right? I had private health insurance and a wonderful surgeon. So I spoke to her about all the options. I went home and I spoke to my kids about the options. We sat them down and we went, Mummy can have the bad bit, the cancer taken out, but it might come back. And then she's got to have all this other treatment. And she's got to be off work and be away from you guys, and it's all going to be hard for her. Or I could go bad boobs off, new boobs on. What do you think? They went, oh, bad boobs off, new boobs on. I'm like, done, sold. So health insurance really did change my life. It meant that from start to finish, I was able to, including the healing, beat cancer in 5 months, which is, I feel phenomenally blessed, and I really do. I feel like the luckiest woman alive. My little man keeps going, Mummy, you've got cancer. You keep saying how lucky you are. I'm like, no, I'm really lucky. The other type of insurance that really is key is income protection insurance. Now, it doesn't work great for cancer, I have to say, because the nature of the treatment is that it's quite stop-start. Even if you need chemotherapy, you might be dreadful for a week, you might be okay and functioning for 2, then it starts again. And a lot of times income protection insurance needs like 30 days or 60 days or 90 days off laid up before it pays out. So there is a bit of a failing there. However, there are provisions where you can get some help through income protection. That aside, any other illness or ailment that's going to lay you low, income protection is a must, even if you're single, because how on earth would you pay your bills if your one income wasn't coming in? It's really, really key. It is tax deductible. It's expensive, but it's tax deductible, and that delay in the beginning saves you money. So you can push out that waiting period. If you've got your holy shit fund in place, you can afford to do that because you've got that stopgap, right? The other thing is life insurance. So if you have debts or dependents, really, really key, life insurance. Particularly, if your partner dies, for example, just to make sure that everyone is protected. So those are your 3 I want you to check when you go home. The I in F.I.R.S.T is insurance. Health insurance, income protection insurance, and life insurance. Which brings me to the R. And if you do just one thing from this when you get home, for God's sakes, pick up the phone to your lender and ask for a discount. So there are secret deals and discounts right now, which I revealed 2 weeks ago, of up to 2.41%, which I've never seen in my entire career. So these are from the largest lenders in the land, because there's such a mortgage exodus on right now that lenders are desperately trying to stem the flow of money off their lending books. That's because obviously the Reserve Bank is applying the pain, right? The repayment pain is so acute that people are finally getting off their asses and refinancing to better deals that are available, and the big banks are so desperately trying to keep them that they're giving discounts on the spot of 2.41%. Now, percentages mean nothing, and I can see everyone, glazing over a little bit. On the average $600,000 mortgage, that's $780 in your pocket a month. That's massive, okay? And if there's one life-changing thing, that's why your mortgage is it. If you're paying over the odds in interest, you're simply giving away your money. You're squandering your future. Now, here's the beautiful thing, and this is part of what I wrote about in the book and the strategy, one of the strategies that I used of about 8. If you can get a better deal, but then keep your repayments the same, that becomes a free overpayment, and that becomes tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and debt freedom years and years earlier. So if you were able to keep your repayments the same, you'd effectively be now paying $780 extra a month. And that's a massive amount of extra money on a mortgage. In fact, it's going to save you $304,000 in interest. It's also going to get you out of debt 7 years early. Now remember, that's not for paying 1 extra cent than what you're used to paying right now. The fact is, you might need the $780. For now, you might need the $780. But bear that in mind, because if you can retain that level, then that's absolutely life-changing. Tell them that you know you can get a rate of 4.09% from a quality lender comparable to a big bank. 4.09% is your benchmark, and that's your sort of bargaining tool. Which brings me to the, oh, hang on. This is going with the health insurance one. That's post-surgery. It's clearly in the wrong place. Okay. Which brings me to the S, which is super. Super is inherently sexist. It's lovely that we have this compulsory system that we've had since 1992, saving in the background for us and looking after us. Except that for women, it's going to fail us. So we talked a lot about the gender pay gap this conference, right? It's 14% nationally. And as we all know now, it's more like 16% in media because of the nature of the roles that women tend to have in media versus those that men tend to have in media. So superannuation is an earnings-based saving system. So that just compounds and compounds and compounds that problem. It bakes it in so that it extends way into our retirement, okay? Typically, women still take the career breaks to have that break and raise children and work harder. And I love the idea that we need to redefine what work is, because that's the hardest work you can do, right? Anyone who has children will attest. And then we go and make it all worse by living longer, living about 4 years longer. So we have to get a smaller pot and we have to stretch it across a longer time. So Rice Water Actuaries, a team of boffins in Sydney who crunched the numbers, actually calculated that just to make up for what's called the longevity risk, is the fact that we live 4 years longer, women can actually combat it by saving an extra 2% of their salary. So you do this by salary sacrifice, right? Which means it doesn't even cost you 2% of your salary. It costs you less because it's before tax. So what they did was they actually applied about a decade ago to the Human Rights Commission, because on the face of it, it seems discriminatory. They wanted to pay their female workers 2% more super to make up for it. And you know what? They got permission from the Human Rights Commission. That's how entrenched the disadvantage is and how evidentially based, provable it is. So ladies, if you can salary sacrifice 2% extra into your super at all times you are working, hopefully that makes up for the times when you are not. It'll do a lot more to put you on the path to financial security and future-proof your life. And my final thing of F.I.R.S.T is tests. Do your tests. Get tested. Do the things that we put off. Put yourself first. I'm telling you firsthand, you need to put yourself first. It's really, really important. All that stuff that's on the back burner, on the 17th on the to-do list, just keep up with it. If I hadn't, I'd be dying. I would be dying. And what happened to me was that I met this amazing woman, and I'm going to cry here. I met this amazing woman who was a fellow journalist by the name of Sabrina Rogers-Anderson. She is me. She's me. She works for all the same publications. She's freelance for the same amount of time. She's a columnist. We've been on the same shows, the same radio programs. We both live at the Sunshine Coast. She loves running. She's me. I should say, I'm money. She used to be a columnist in FHM. She's me, but for sex. So she's sex, I'm money. I should put that out there. She's far more interesting than me, but she's me. So when we met, we just struck up this amazing instant friendship. We met towards the end of 2020. What we also didn't realise we had in common was that we both had undiagnosed breast cancer. Wow. Yeah. That chance meeting probably saved my life, along with my health insurance. So she got diagnosed 3 weeks later, and I was genuinely floored because this new person in my life, who I decided was my person, had just been diagnosed, and her mammogram was cancelled in COVID 9 months earlier. So she had 3 very bad tumours. So she had to have an emergency single mastectomy. You don't get the choice to have 2 when it's an emergency because they don't want to double the risk of infection. You don't have time for that. There's no luxury of that. Then she endured. So at this point, I don't know I have cancer. I'm just trying to get people to check. So I check, and then 2 months later, I've got cancer too. And she was floored. She was absolutely floored, but it was amazing. She is literally my bosom buddy. So she's now had her second elective mastectomy as well. She's finished all of her treatment. Hers was more like a 2-year journey because she had to have chemo as well. So she is an absolute warrior. She has 3 small children. This is her visiting me after I've just come out of hospital, and note the very fetching mastectomy bra there. They're fabulous. They tried to sell me a skin colour one. I'm like, oh, for God's sake, make it black. No one has a social media strategy for cancer. And when I got diagnosed, I went, oh my God, this is the fight of my life. I have to go to ground. But the fact that I'd built such an audience in COVID, and I had such support from that audience, like for all the nasty stories about social media, the people there were so grateful that I was just helping them for no money. And there was so much gratitude and love, and I was, doing a big campaign, everyone needs to look after each other, let's get the other side of this, hashtag no more than enough for landlords, etc., etc. I had such support there that I went, you know what, if Sabrina saved me, if me with my audience can put it out there, if I save just one person, then it's not been for nothing. It's completely worth it. And that was the only way I could think of turning it into a positive, really. So I put it out there on my social media. It was all about tits, and tits are out there. They're the old ones. The new ones are heaps better. Silver linings, hey? Yeah, they're the new ones. Except that was only about 2.5 weeks after surgery, and I was like under that dress. I was just a mess. I was literally in pieces, still had drains in. It's not a pretty nice thing to go through. But it's fast and it's effective, and I wouldn't ever change my decision of what I did. First party, spread the word, hashtag check your boobs, hashtag fuck cancer, doing everything I could. Back on deck signing books, happy days, still double mastectomy bras there, nice, white and black, fun times. And then I sort of started to take that wider as well. So I started to get a bit more campaigny because people were watching, not just my followers, but people were watching. I had such amazing, people say to me, oh, I've just gone and checked, thank you so much, or, it was such lovely feedback. So I started to take it wider. So International Women's Day, the previous day, was March 3rd. I said before my mastectomies were March 2, that previous year. So I thought I wouldn't do that one because I figured high on endone probably wasn't what they were really wanting for International Women's Day. But I was very pleased to be able to join this International Women's Day panel, and with the amazing Kate Brown, who I will give a special shout out to, who's over there filming with my camera, who has been through her own heroic breast cancer battle. And I am lucky enough to work with and for at Yahoo Finance now. So we made sure that on that panel, we very, very starkly highlighted the fact that one of the things you need to do as a woman is to just make sure you're on top of your tests. McGrath Foundation staff, biggest morning teas. I kind of went hard on it. And then I started writing. And that's, as therapy, besides running, writing is just the best therapy, right? And I had a friend who didn't have private health insurance, and amazing counsel from women around me who'd been through it. And this is nothing against the public system, by the way. The public system is amazing when you need it. She was given that single lumpectomy. She then got cancer again in the same boob, different type of cancer. Then she had a single mastectomy about 5 years later. No reconstruction. She's still waiting. It's 7 years after that. She's still waiting for a reconstruction. So this beautiful woman who was 32 when she was diagnosed has been flat on one side for 7 years because she didn't have private health insurance. And there's a lot that goes on, mentally with that, especially at that age. This went, so I paralleled our 2 stories, and she wanted me to tell her story. She was cheering for me so loudly. And Apple picked it up. Everyone got it on their phones the next morning as the editor's picks. Wrote it for the SMH in my column, my Sunday column, that I was the editor of that in a previous life. Wrote it for that as well, and that was about health insurance, of course. Went and visited my mates at Studio 10 because they wanted me to tell the story. And following this up, that's fetching. So hard to get a good still. Well, maybe it's just me. So the reason it kind of went into mass media is the last thing I want to explain to you, which is that a mammogram failed me. So Sabrina got diagnosed. I booked my mammogram. It was like 3 months down the track because it was a big queue from, post-COVID. I was busy. So I booked that mammogram. I found the lump the week before the mammogram. And then I got put in for an emergency mammogram, because they rush you through. And that system, as I said, is amazing. Like, we're so lucky to live in Australia. That mammogram, had I had it, that usual mammogram, gave me the all clear. What? I could see the tumour. It was a lump that stuck out of my breast. And the mammogram couldn't see it. Because skinny, younger women and women with dense breasts, and you don't necessarily have to be skinny or younger to have dense breasts, but usually pre-menopause, it is a factor. Mammograms don't see through them. They all look white, and tumours look white. So they were saying there's nothing there. So if I hadn't also been sent for an ultrasound, if I'd just done that as a routine thing without knowing there was a lump, it'd be 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years down the track, and I'd be standing here with cancer growing in me. So don't just get a mammogram, get an ultrasound. You'll have to pay for the ultrasound, but you know what? It's better than paying with your life. Just make sure you do your proper tests. So this is why, it sort of got picked up far and wide, really, because of that message. So this is coming full circle back to my book. This is my mini man. He's 12. This is his book week dress up, which is happy days for a mum. I don't have to compete with the hardcore mums out there who were sewing stuff. He went as himself because he's on the cover of that book. He got his sense of humour from his dad. So he's on and in that book. So this is his book week. So how to get mortgage free like me, I am so very fortunate that I wrote, because it's not just about getting out of a mortgage. The way you get out of a mortgage quickly is getting into the right mortgage. And getting into a mortgage is really damn hard, especially if you're a single, freelance, COVID-affected, cancer-impacted woman. It's pretty impossible. But the strategies that I wrote for this book and how I tell people to get into a mortgage and how I explain how to get into the right mortgage meant that I'm happily no longer mortgage free because I had to buy out my ex. And I was able to. So it's signed, it's not settled. It literally happened last week, and it's been a 6-month mission to get that loan over the line. I can't even tell you, but I'm so blessed that I had it all down for that book. So my kids can grow up in the house, the family home that they love, half there, half in the house over the hill that my ex has bought, and they can stay there. So I need to just redo the book. I need to redo the book's title as not how to get mortgage free like me, but how to get a mortgage as that single, freelance, cancer-affected, COVID-impacted woman like me. And that just means the world to me. I'm so very proud. So ladies, get your heads out of the sand. This is my little girl. Get your heads out of the sand and put yourselves and your family, if for no other reason than to protect your children, first.
Oh, I'm just going to shout, thank you, Nicole. That was amazing. I think we all need to